Well, welcome everyone, and welcome Paul and Harold, and thank you for being with us today. So we have quite a, I think, quite a fancy and exciting topic now about video games. Of course, we all know that video games are, useful. They're popular among kids, but also among adults more and more now. And they are places where we can play, but also more and more to communicate. And as such, they're also, unfortunately, a channel to spread harmful content through video games, of course, to a much lesser extent than social media, for instance, as we'll see in a minute. But still, there is a growing worry about this particular topic. But the good news is the industry is well aware, and the industry is committed to make sure that video games are a safe and secure environment where people can, play and communicate safely and responsibly as well. So these are the questions that we'll discuss this afternoon. And maybe, I guess, the first question I want to ask to the two of you with your different approaches is, where do we stand today? Why is harmful content spreading in video games? What are the trends? What is the situation today, really?
Thank you. There's another one there too if you want one. Can everybody hear me okay? I'll try to keep the mic close. So I'm Paul. I'm from Electronic Arts. I work as a director of safe and fair player experiences. At EA, we're very invested in making sure that that players are safe. But I want to step back just a little bit and just talk about gaming generally. Gaming is a place where people can come together to experience things, to have fun, to immerse themselves in new worlds, and it's really focused on entertainment, on how people get together and just create those fun experiences. Gaming is also something that supports a lot of people. There are a lot of people that look to gaming as a way to safely interact with other people, as a way to escape from the drudgery of their real world, or just to connect with folks that they've met either online or IRL in real life. The Entertainment Software Association is an industry trade group of which EA is a member, and they just this last week published their latest Power of Play report. And one of the things that they found, this is a study that they do with gamers worldwide, one of the things that they found is that 71% of people who play games do it because it supports their mental health. They feel like it's a way for them to just kind of self-regulate and to connect with others. So that's a little bit about gaming. So at EA, at my company, we talk about gaming as a way for people to come together, to play, to watch, to create, and one of the ways that we try to support that is by making sure that our players have the ability to connect with each other through the games. So there are social interactions that happen in many games, not all games. Many of the games that we publish do incorporate multiplayer play, but there are games that are single-player games where you don't interact with other people. When we provide these multiplayer experiences for players, we have some basic things that we always do in all of our games. We use filters for text communications. We'll review content, we'll redact or star it out if there are things that are inappropriate, or block those things entirely. We also make sure that our players can always tell us if they think that they've seen something or interacted with somebody that they think isn't okay, so that we can then go take a look at that content. A slight pause. I'm getting the sense that when I turn my head, the sound is fading away. If that's true, just not. Yeah, okay. I'll try to keep the mic in front of me. So, so when our players are able to interact with each other, we want to make sure that they also have a way to tell us about it. So we always include a reporting feature in our games. And looking back over several years of data, what I've seen, I've been at EA. I was just telling my friends up here that today is my second anniversary at EA. I've been at EA for 2 years now. Previously, I was at Riot Games for a little over 2 years. They make a little game called League of Legends. And then before that, I was at Xbox for about 11 and a half years. The last 3.5 years as the head of safety for Xbox. So I got a lot of time in the safety space. I got a lot of time in the gaming space. And in looking at numbers for EA at Electronic Arts, where I am now, what I've seen is that pretty consistently for several years now, what we see is that the vast majority of our players are honoring our sort of rules, which we call our positive play charter. The reports show that 97% of the players, 97 to 98% of players are actually generally pretty okay with each other. They're not abusive, they're not harmful, they're not acting in these negative ways. It's a pretty solid 2 to 3% of players who are the ones that are sort of disruptive, are acting in ways that are inappropriate for our community. And that number is pretty consistent with the other places that I've been. It's about the same rate where we see 2 to 3% of the players are the ones that are really like the problem children. But when we get reports from players, we review those reports. We review every report that we get, and 95% of the time when we do have to take an action, so remember it was about 2 to 3% of the time where we see these disrupted players, 95% of the actions that we take are limited duration or warnings. So it'll be a temporary sign-in ban. It'll be a warning to that player. It says, hey, this wasn't okay. It didn't rise to the level where we felt like we had to take action on your account, but please don't do that again. And players respond to that. We see a pretty low rate of recidivism when we are able to take an action on an account, and we just don't see sort of persistent or pervasive behaviors. If somebody does display those things, we'll permanently ban the account. So from the standpoint of like harmful content, spreading of harmful content, that kind of thing, we don't actually see a lot of that at EA. The surface area is pretty limited. Gaming tends to be pretty ephemeral. You go into a game session, you play, you interact with other people, then you come back out. So it's not. I think it's a problem of numbers. Like it is, there can be harmful content, but it's very, very rare that we see it, and we can take action pretty quickly. Sorry, I've been running my mouth.
No, that's an awesome story. What was the question again? Just kidding. So I'm going to introduce as well myself. I'm Aaron, the founder and CEO of OVA, and just a quick story on myself so you better understand why I'm here today. First thing first, huge fan of EA, Microsoft, and all the places you work. That's nice IP, by the way. I started back in the good old days playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. I don't know if some of you have played that game. You can make your own skate park. Pretty dope with Tony, obviously, and Ronan Mullen. And, you know, because I live in such a place in time with those sandbox coming up with Minecraft, Roblox, I was inspired to create on our own sandbox, which is named StellaRx. And the thing is, back in 2014, when I started the company, I was asked by Lockheed Martin to do a virtual reality submarine. So Lockheed is better known for the F-35. And they, so what is a submarine, right? Everyone know as well, but yeah. And we discovered it was quite hard to do this virtual reality submarine. You need to be good in programming, good in 3D modeling. So this is when we decided to create that UGC, so user-generated content, but for B2B. And so progressing toward that line, we find that, you know, to scale it up, we need to be also mass market. And this is why we plan to launch it first on Steam and Quest Store afterward, because it's still, you know, a spatial computing company. I mean, we changed so much time the naming of it, you know, VR, AR, XR, spatial computing, what it is now is spatial computing. And the thing is, and this is one I want to talk more on my end of the talk, is how do you protect the person that you see in front of your space? Because as a human species, you know, we have always been exchanging, communicating, or 3D idea, but through a 2D screen until now, for those that adopt spatial computing. So finally, in 2023, 4, 5, we will start more and more to communicate our 3D idea in 3D dimension. But how you do it is with someone else virtually present in front of you, or someone that you think that is someone in front of you, right? Because we all know with the LLM and everything changing around ourselves, who knows which will be the avatar in front of your face? Will it be your own self talking to you or someone else, right? So it can get kind of confusing when you go down into that rabbit hole, and this is when you need to put, you know, kind of roadblock to potential harmful content that can be randomly and biasly produced. And because you are the one injecting it into your software through a third-party API, such as OpenAI API or whatever the third-party API you use to create, you know, chat discussion or even time-to-time discussion, this is stuff that needs to be addressed, I think, more, because you are personally affected as your own human being through your avatar. And yeah, so that's for the intro. You know,
Thanks, that was great. So one thought that occurred to me as you were talking about that is that, and we see this in gaming now in 2D, is this idea of the individual's identity getting wrapped up in their online identity. And of course, in gaming, so at Xbox we called it a gamer tag. It's a player name at other places, but it's that persona that you have online. When somebody interacts with me online, they on Xbox, I don't show up as Paul SNYDER. I have a gamer tag. It's TP. It's actually just 2 letters, and it's pretty rare. The benefits of working there. So I get attached to that name, and I want people to know that gamer tag in that name. And one of the things that we saw a lot when I was there, and I've seen this at both of these other places I've been as well now, Riot and EA, is that people connect themselves, their own identity with that name. When you start to move into spatial computing, when you start to move into avatars that begin to look even more realistic and interacting, that identity becomes, I'm sure, even more deeply connected to that human, and that becomes sort of a problematic area for abusive behaviors. If I go into Harold's, what do you call it in Quest? Like a space, shared space. Yeah. So go into a shared space somewhere, and I make my avatar look exactly like him. He's either going to like it, not care, or not like it, and I'd be willing to bet that you're either a not care, or you're probably not going to be a fan of it, especially if I do something bad with it. Like I take your avatar image and I put scars all over. I do something terrible to it. So I think that's that recognizing that those are the kinds of behaviors that people are going to display when they're interacting online means that as a gaming company, when I think about that in a gaming context, not so much in social interaction context, we have to have protections in place for those players. So we have to have ways that will evaluate the imagery if they're uploading imagery, that we can look at the text that they're using, and that we can respond if Harold were to file a report and say, hey, this is what's happening and it's not okay with me. We can look and see what we would do as as the host for that environment. But it also means we have to make sure Harold has the ability to do what Harold needs to do, to block me, to report me, to make sure there's additional virtual space, because that's definitely something I think that they were seeing early on was this close proximity, sort of taunting behavior. But those are the kinds of experiences we have to anticipate and get ready for.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Oh yeah. Because I have a quick video just to show you how everything evolves. It's gonna take 10 seconds. So it's the story of video game that I'm pretty sure most of you know about, starting with Pong, and then Nintendo, StarCraft, and finally online gaming. The thing is, the Moore's law has its limit, and the GPU, CPU get overloaded quite quickly. And that was a company that got one of the many companies that got acquired by Epic Games. This is one of them. They were behind Crackdown. Oh, Microsoft has one actually. But the guy spinning off, he started CloudGen, and then he got another exit, almost on the same IP. And where I want to go with that is with decentralization of computation, with 5G, 6G, now Apple and Meta and another one, Google maybe, just got approved for 6G. It's going to get fast, and being your virtual self, because nowadays the meta-human of this world, if you know that project from Epic Game, or it's a lot of polygons, a lot of triangles to load on a commercial GPU, but soon anyway, commercial GPU, I think at your home, an RTX 4090 will be maybe something, will be something of the past. So betting on that, having your own self and being with your own friend in a virtual space. And by the way, we at my company start working on the Apple Vision Pro. This is all I can say. But the other thing I can say is that there's a lot of things changing and upcoming in this paradigm shift, where I think what is now taking pictures and video will be as easy to create 3D dimension. And the only challenge for human, I know I'm going in a small direction, but will be to figure out like how do we host all that and who will pay for all that hosting. And about that was a cool project. They were calling it Dadia because only I think people from a certain age were buying Stadia. In the dad of this world and in the mom, but the nickname was Dadia, where not loading any game. It was all from the cloud. I'm sure also you heard of that, but you see how fast. I mean, on a human scale, everything is going, and there is an opening question that's why I'm showing you that I want you to remember looking at those videos. And the thing is, we are talking on the stage about us, about professional work and everything, but also for the parents in the room, there is also how it's going to change also for our kids, for the next generation, how we will be able to, kind of protect them through that, because there is a lot of naivety. And as you can see, he is loading an IoT game, so the game it's a real physical toy, but when he connects it, he can then switch to the game, and then his dad will appear. It will say it's time to work on your homework, and everything is propelled by 5G. So he has a Snapchat face mask, let's say, and so he switched to going to his homework. And then he jumped from a mixed reality setting to a fully virtual reality one, where his teacher doing overtime waits for him at the nearest Egyptian pyramid. So this is the kind of near future where it's going in, and this is the Apple Vision Pro Vision, where now it's $5,000, but you know, one day it's gonna be cheaper. So yeah, that's it for this sport.
Well, thanks a lot, and that's impressive to see sort of the journey from where we were like a few years ago only. And so we see the potential of the sector, but also the potential risks that come with it. And you both briefly mentioned it, but in a very sort of concrete and practical ways, what can the industry do to avoid online, to avoid harmful content to spreading in video games? What sort of measures, tools, solutions can be set up and implemented?
I'll go. I think it actually starts not with tools. It starts with setting expectations with players and with parents and guardians. Most gaming companies have some sort of in fact, I'm sure all of them do. They're all pretty well lawyered up. They all have terms of service. Nobody reads the terms of service except the lawyers. Many gaming companies, though, use some variation of a code of conduct. And I think it starts with that code of conduct. It starts with making sure that you establish as a gaming company, hey, these are our values and sort of our expectations for how we think that people should be behaving when they're part of our gaming community. So at EA, what we call that is the Positive Play Charter. It's published on our website. It's referenced in games when you go through account creation, when you go through signing up, first install on a game, you'll get the EULA and terms of service, but then you'll get this short statement about the Positive Play Charter. It's pithy, it's pretty brief, and it's in language that's more accessible. And I think that's something that most game companies are recognizing, not all of them, but most of them are recognizing that you need to make sure that people kind of have a sense of, hey, this is what this community is going to be like. Then you need to have the ability to actually like monitor what's happening in games, and that will look different depending on what kind of game it is. For single player games, there's really nothing that you would need to monitor in terms of interactions. But maybe there are some content filters that you want to make available so that you have an ability to use things like parental controls, which I'll come back to in just a second. You want to make sure that you have those filters in place. You want to make sure that your players have the ability to report other players, that they can mute those other players, not just voice, but text, so that they're not able to get messages from them. You also need to make sure that you have systems in place where you can use both automation and human reviews. So at EA, for example, we use automation. So some types of machine learning, some types of more straightforward evaluation to look for things that are likely to be innocuous and set those aside. Everything else goes to a human for review, and we want humans looking at these things because it's often the context that is the challenging part. I mean, the language can sometimes be very, very clear, but because we put filters in place and we enable different types of filtering in different situations, people get creative. I usually say it's gamers are going to game, so they try to figure out how to game the system and get around the filters that we put in. So it's a constant sort of effort to keep the automation running correctly and also to gather that input from the humans. I mentioned parental controls a minute ago. I think that's something else that gaming companies can do to make sure that their players are having these safe experiences. And it's not just for parents or guardians, it can be self-controls as well. I mentioned before, I was at Xbox for a long time, so I have an Xbox account. I have my account set so that I can't get friend requests from people because I got a lot of them from people trying to buy my gamer tag, which is not allowed under the terms of service. But that's a parental control that I'm using on myself because I'm like, I don't want to get friend invites. I don't want to get pinged by friend invites all the time. Many of the gaming companies take advantage of these parental controls. All of the console platforms, so Xbox, Sony PlayStation, and Nintendo, have really robust parental controls that are available both in the console, but since most parents, me excluded and probably a bunch of others, don't spend a lot of time in the console. They also have really good web and mobile apps for parental controls as well. So they make it pretty straightforward for parents to be able to limit text chat, limit friend requests, have insight into what their kids or the kids that they're watching are doing. I think that's a critical capability that needs to be part of gaming as well, is just this concept of, hey, if I'm going to be interacting with people, I want control over how those people can interact with me. And of course, the expectation is that you're subject to the same sorts of controls, that your account might get blocked by somebody, you might be muted by somebody, and that's just part of how people interact online.
Can I buy your gamer tag?
No.
Just kidding. No, that's cool. I mean, you're representing a big company, so you have, I guess, a lot of lawyers and people to help you out to figure that out, the term of service and everything.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Yeah. So it is not the same on our end. So we need to be kind of creative because it can go fast at $600 an hour when you have to to write down an end user license agreement or a privacy policy. So what we did is we first draft our private policy, GDPR, ULA, and SLA, and then Rubik review it, which is an IP firm here, and they do also that kind of work. But what is great to know is that outside of Steam, when you go to a publisher or a marketplace like Microsoft or Quest, the Quest Store from Meta, they will also review the privacy policy and everything. So even if it's deal done with your lawyer, they will find something, and that's great. So there is maybe always something to be found, and then you can correct yourself and be sure that it's rocket solid. And you open the door for machine learning, so I'm getting in a bit in advance. One of the danger to have a sandbox is the shape that people can draw in a world. And one of the good things for our app is that since it is more, it is geared toward B2B and B2G. So because of that, nobody can create a public space. And once someone creates one, it is privately shared, and it is shared in a matter of a session. So just like when you create a Google Meet space or a team or whatever, the session doesn't exist when the host is gone. So it's the same for us. Cannot live without that at host, though it is not deployed as a P2P server. It is just a server where people goes and it is open up. So in that matter, it's more scalable as well. And for the machine learning part, again, back into this memory lane of UGC, so user-generated content, where it's kind of a long process to develop a 3D world. Just like when you wake up and do your bed and clean up your room, it takes time to get it 3D and done. So, more and more I see it moving from this, and this is our, just the only clip to show you our software while I'm here, where you saw voxel, where the cube is named a voxel in Minecraft, and here it's polygons, so building with triangles that make shapes, in that case, table, plane, and so on. So it's a drag and drop process, though even if it's our software, I find it quite long. So this is why we start thinking about what AI can do for us and how we can move from UGC to AIGC, where AIGC stands for Artificial Intelligence Generated Content. And how then it can also help us to identify those, funny shapes that you don't want in your world to people to draw there. So, so yeah, I'm gonna skip right here. It is an open source project made by Meta called named Craft Assist. So it's a wordplay between Minecraft and Assistance, where NLP, so natural language processing, it's injected in Minecraft, where someone is asking it to build a simple circle, and then it will build it with it and also discuss about what it built. So it is kind of intention to creation, and that's lower the curve for the non-pro user that is also non-creator. And we were talking a lot during the pandemic about the creator economy. But being a creator means you have creativity and you have idea of what you want to build. And often there is a bunch of people that are really remixer. They will remix. And that's a good way to remix things. And where I want to go with that is when it goes down to remixing, you don't want someone, again, going back to what we were talking, to take your identity to act as you and to just remix the world that is not his or her or they and to do, to mess around. So, and more, we will not, and that's what we were talking about now with a video, not differentiate what is real and what's not. And that was like, I was showcasing this video like 4 years ago. Now it just has been proof that it's working with the Lex Friedman podcast with Mark and him. But that was in the lab a long time ago. So I'm happy that now it's coming out and showing that it's not just vaporware. And okay, I'm switching from a video to another one because I thought it was going to be the next, but maybe I forget to put it there. But yeah, just before the shining. So we built a machine learning algorithm around something called voxelization. So you remember Minecraft is based on voxel. So voxelization recognizes 3D object based out on how the placement of the voxel are done. So then you can say, based on that placement of voxel, this is the shape you don't want to see. Though then there is another challenge is that you hit your GPU for thinking about that while you want to render the 3D pictures on the same GPU. So that's why then back to the 5G, back to why it's so nice to have cloud gaming finally is because it will save us from that and make that intersection between AI and gaming possible, and also enabling those blocking of like, is someone stealing my identity? Is someone going against the TOS and so on? So yeah, and I'll go back to that later. Yeah.
I have to say, when I saw that Minecraft one with the circle, when it said, "Can you draw a circle?" I couldn't figure out what he was doing. I thought the circle should be horizontal and not vertical. Oh, so I just I was like, why? What's he doing? But one of the challenges of AI is like that context of being able to be clear about what you want. Anyway, just thought.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I think you sort of both showed what you can do, what the industry can do to trying to curb harmful content in video games. But are there any initiatives, sort of cross-industry, where different industry players join forces to fight together?
Yeah, there are a number of different ways this happens at different levels. So there are organizations that are a little bit more organic, that are basically a shared community where people can come together and sort of promote positive play and positive interactions. That's things like the Fair Play Alliance. That put that at sort of one end. Out to a far more structured sort of thing, like the Entertainment Software Association, the ESA, which serves North America, has a trust and safety working group where they bring together members of the ESA, so gaming companies, service providers that support gaming and some other entertainment things, and are working on how we sort of raise the bar across the entire industry. There are similar things in the UK. EA just did a program with Yuki, which is the UK Interactive Gaming Association, where we're promoting those parental controls I was just talking about for making sure that players are able to have these safe and fair experiences. So there's a spectrum of different ways that the industry is working to try to do a better job of making sure that it's just consistent for all players across these different experiences. I think that going forward, what we'll see is more and more interaction across different platforms. Probably I'm doing math in my head, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, yeah, maybe not even that long ago, we first started to see, this is when I was at Xbox, we first started to see cross-platform play, where you could play in a game with somebody who was not on Xbox. They were playing on their PC, or they were playing on a PlayStation. So that's grown exponentially. Now it's pretty standard fare to be able to interact with people. I have attempted, not successfully, to play from my mobile device with other people that are playing on games, because you mentioned cloud computing and Stadia. This isn't a pitch for Xbox, but Xbox has a cloud gaming feature that's available, and you can play many of the games using touch on your phone, or you can use Bluetooth to connect your phone to a controller and actually use a controller. The opportunity for those interactions sort of vastly increases the footprint, the exposure area of where bad things might show up. And so that's something I think the industry is very aware of, is thinking about how do we appropriately, and honoring our privacy notices and our policies, how do we make sure that somebody who's being disruptive in a game on our platform, but is playing from a console platform, or is coming in sideways somewhere, how do we make sure that we're able to take action on our side, which is pretty straightforward to do, but do we need to communicate anything to these other companies? And that's a pretty fraught discussion about sharing information, because it's often what we usually refer to as PII, personally identifiable information, and you can't share that. That's part of the privacy agreement that you sign with each player, is that you're going to protect that information. So there have been several sort of goes at these various different sort of organizations at figuring out a structure for how to safely share information when something isn't okay. And typically, like that bar of not violating the privacy notice only gets passed when we're talking about illegal content. So when it's illegal content, CSEA or CSAM or something like that, you can come talk to me later about acronyms if you want. That's when sharing information will probably start, and then we'll find ways that we can do a better job going forward.
Just going back, Harold, to what you were saying about IA, and isn't there sort of an ethics issue as well? And how can we make sure that, you were talking about in identities, how can we make sure that human beings protect their identities?
Yeah, the ethical question is super hard to answer, but super relevant as well. And I think everyone got at stake right now, since this is a plane in construction, and we don't know yet where it's going to land. Fully it's going to land. So first thing first, that brought me to my last video, which is a memorable scene from The Shining. If you didn't see it, spoiler alert, I guess. So here it is a reconstruction of a 3D space, and that was like, again, another 4 or 5 years ago, before Nerf and Gaussian splatting, where it is recreated in point cloud. So nowadays with neural radiance field, so Nerf and Gaussian splatting, you can recreate, you know, a 3D world quite quickly from video, though it's not optimal yet. For example, the test we're making right now, and based on small video, it takes like 24 hours. And this is because we use our own server, because it will cost too much if we were going to sub-rent it on Amazon or whatever. But I want to go to a place where is that then you share your own personal space, or you can go to friends and you make a video, then you want to share it in 3 dimensions, because this is the idea I was telling you about. So what is then the privacy policy of your friend house? And, you know, just like back in the day with Facebook, where you tag people that they didn't want to be tagged, right? So I think that's also like random question, which are not random, but that came out random that we need to think of. That's new, that, oh, I didn't think about that, I think, you know? So it's a lot of thinking outside of the box. Then for the identity, you know, I know it's maybe not the hype topic of this time. It was more maybe during the pandemic, but I think a lot about how blockchain can maybe help to secure such identity. And again, it is because of this intersection of technology. I do believe that all those technologies that are bleeding edge, which means in my mind as an entrepreneur that it costs you a lot to develop something in that field, because there is so many risks that this technology will change to another one. So you bleed cash working on it. But I do believe that one day it's gonna bleed less to invest in like all those area, and it will make the ethical question so much easier, because all of them are working on the answer of it. And it's just that they are not yet intersected as much as we want. And this is why I think there is so much space in Canada and Quebec and all the other provinces to work with those R&D research center. And this is what helped us, as I think we are a kind of a bleeding edge company. I try not as much as before, because one day you can live with risks for forever, but it de-risk to work with, to co-develop with R&D research center, because then you can have, you know, help from the government. We have been well supported at OVA from the digital cluster, from Scale AI and others. And I invite, you know, I mean, just those two, but there is others. And I invite, you know, people to check it out, because it can help to go and answer those hard questions. But then again, it goes back to protecting also yourself behind a wall of lawyer, as what can kill your company is a lawsuit. And to have looked toward, you know, blocking some spec of it with privacy policy and so on, waiting before the time gets there and this intersection again happens. So yeah. That's my answer to it.
Well, thank you so much, and it's interesting to see what, like, the variety of different, you know, approaches, measures, and tools that can be used. And, you know, we understand that, you know, when you put them together, all together, it's a kind of consistent and global answer to that question. I think we're getting near to the end, but we still have maybe a few minutes for questions from the floor. If any of you have any questions. Yes? Cool.
I think we have 1 minute.
There, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, I am Adeline. I work for a public relation firm as a researcher, but I am specialized in cybercrime prevention. and also I game a lot. And so as being a researcher and a gamer, a female gamer with a French accent, I get a lot of, nice words in the gaming world. And so I kind of decided to use this time to collect data, on the contextual/internal factors of the cyberbullying in general. And I realized that, the filters and the things that the tools, the prevention tools that are applied, like you were talking about the filters and the mute button and things like that, for certain games, they're like useless somehow, because, people can get unmuted, and they also can just change the words, the letters in the words that they use, and they can create another account. So all that to say, my question is, do you think that some gaming developers, they would deliberately use that kind of tools to say, yes, okay, we respect the rules, but on the other side, we want to keep our customer base, so we don't really take proper action that would actually be useful? So that's kind of my question.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Thank you very much for that question. And I can appreciate the challenges that you probably face trying to use voice comms in games. It's often a really painful experience for anybody that doesn't sound like me. And I'm very, very aware of that. So I think that generally speaking, no, gaming companies are not more interested in keeping the subscriber or the paying customer than they are in the one who's an abusive person, than they are in the one who's the target of that abuse. Reputational risk, if nothing else, it can be an incredible motivator for companies to do things that they probably needed to do anyway. You mentioned sort of a reference to the comment I made before about gamers are going to game. They figure out how to transpose characters. The brain figures it out very fast. The filters tend to be less so. That's why you've seen over time, like the quality of the filters changing as the tech has gotten a lot better. It used to be, it was pretty much a block list and an allow list. And that was how companies would manage it. It would often be something that was just downloaded into the game client. And so it was actually, in some cases, an accessible file that people would just go in and like comment out. And now what you see is many games have moved to online systems for this sort of thing. They've gotten a lot better about not using just regular expression or text lists. They're using ML or really elaborate rule systems to do a much better job of understanding context and telling when text is going wrong. So I think that's been getting better. There's still upside, I'll put it that way. Voice has been a lot more challenging for things that Harold was referring to about compute. Like getting enough compute power to be able to real-time interrupt voice communications, redirect, change, auto-mute. That's really only coming available pretty recently. There are a couple of companies that have some really interesting tech. One of those companies that I have worked with in the past started out with voice changing software. And their safety premise was, oh, you don't want to sound like a woman, you can hide behind North American English white male voice if you want. Or something more interesting, which is, on the one hand, I suppose useful, and on the other hand, just a really, really crappy thing to have to do, where you can't show up and be yourself and play. But they learned as they were going around the market that, hey, actually, like hiding this way, there's some interesting applications in sort of embedding yourself more into a champion, perhaps, so that your voice sounds like that character that you're playing. But for safety, like they've pivoted to being more they have a mobile SDK, they have a PC SDK that'll run on the machine, and it'll real-time evaluate what you're saying, and you can take action very fast. So I think like as those technologies improve, as they become more available and more affordable, I mean, you know, we have 100 million-ish players a month on our platform, and many of them use text comms. Some of them use voice. It really depends on the game. We'll see more and more democratization of those things. Like I've always been like reporting, muting, and blocking. Those are great, but those are after the fact. Like the harm has been done when you have to go and like take your time to go file a report. We want to try to prevent that from happening. We want to get in front of that in some way, and it's a journey. We're getting there. Like there's some things like our Respawn studio, which makes made one of my favorite games, Titanfall, but not investing in that anymore. But they make Apex Legends, which is a first-person squad-based shooter game. They have a really, really good ping system in the game that you can bring up a dial and communicate with other players using the ping system, so you don't have to use your voice. And that's been really powerful for a lot of our players, where they just don't feel like they want to use their voice or can use their voice. So things are slowly getting better. Slowly. We're getting there.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Any more questions? No, well, I think this is going to be the last words then. Thank you very much to the two of you for being with us today. And I hope you learned a lot. It's a very fascinating topic, and I hope next year you have some more news on that to say. Thank you very much.
Merci.